Robert Plank Show, episode 309. Fail less and grow more. Focus on your marketing, discover your buyer's journey, and use both tactics and strategies with growth partner Chris Deardorff.
Okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Our guest today is Chris Deardorff, and he's the president and founder of themarketcompass.com. So Mr. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Robert.
I'm glad that you're here. So can you kind of tell us in your own words who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. And so I'm a 10 plus year marketing professional, and a lot of my background's been in the corporate world. I've worked for companies like GE Capital, Target, Medtronic, Seagate Technologies, in the product marketing, product management arena, and had some fantastic experiences in that space. But I've always had a heart and a passion for startups, and so about 3 years ago, I started working. I started mentoring and advising a couple startups through some local accelerators here in Boulder, and had this realization that there's a ton of great startups with amazing products and very innovation focused, but they weren't really thinking about marketing and weren't really thinking about marketing as a growth engine. And so for me, it was kind of this realization of, man, I think there's a gap. I think there's a problem here, and I might be able to solve it. And so before I kind of took any action on it, I decided to see if there was any data that supported that, what I was seeing. And there's a report put out by a company called CB Insights, and they're kind of a research firm followed by a lot of venture capital firms and angel investors. And the report was the top reasons why startups fail. And in that report, I was actually surprised to see that of the top 10 reasons, 50% were due to marketing, whether it was poor market fit, ignoring the customer, pricing issues, or simply bad marketing execution. And so all of this combined, my observations and the data, was really kind of validation that, yeah, there's a problem here in the startup space. I want to try and solve it. And so 2 years ago, I decided to start my own marketing company with really the mission to work with startups in the hopes of helping them fail less and grow more. And so that's really been our mission. And in 2 years' time, we've worked with 15 startups. A lot of which are tech and software based. We do some non-tech work as well, and it's just been a ton of fun. Getting to work with them and really helping them, achieve, their goals and really kind of taking their businesses to the next level.
Awesome. So, I mean, are you like a marketing consultant for these startups, or like sort of a coach, or like what when a startup, maybe if they're stuck or they're getting started and they come to you, what do you provide specifically?
Yeah. So I don't like the word consultant so much, just because I think a lot of startups kind of have this perception of some person in an ivory tower just kind of pontificating, and the way I like to approach it is, we're really a growth partner. And so, we like to kind of come alongside startups and emerging businesses and really kind of help them take their business to the next level through marketing. And so that's kind of how I would describe us.
Okay, so when these startups, if they're lacking in their marketing or it could be better, I mean, what kind of things are they already doing or trying, and what sort of things should they be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the biggest problem that startups have when it comes to marketing is they don't take a strategic approach to it. They think very kind of myopically in terms of just doing tactics, whether that's, oh, we need a great website, or, oh, we should make a cutting edge video, or let's just write a case study, and they kind of just stop there. And what ends up happening is they invest a lot of time, money, and resources into these tactics, and a lot of times they don't work. The reason they don't work is that they're not being strategic up front. They're not clearly defining, okay, what's our objective? What are we hoping we achieve through this tactic? Who's our target audience? What's our goal with this tactic? Is it lead generation? Is it brand building? Is it conversions? Is it all the above? And so that's a big area where I kind of help companies just take a step back and think a little bit more big picture about, not just the specific tactics, but about their marketing operations. And the results are, their marketing becomes much more efficient. It's more cost effective. And ultimately it has a higher impact on their customers.
Awesome. So don't just do that little one and done trick just because they've seen it or they've been told to do it. Actually, have more of a big picture in mind. And so, I mean, like I've sort of seen this kind of thing happen with startups and even other like solopreneurs and people like that, where like you mentioned, like they'll make a case study or a video, and I've seen people like waste 2-3 months on just
Yep.
like a 2 minute video. Have you seen a lot of that of like just being like I don't know, like overly impractical in that kind of way?
Yeah, and my comment on videos is I think it's never a bad idea to have a video that explains what your company or product does. In fact, there's a lot of data out there that's showing right now video is kind of the number one form of content used by marketers and so forth. And so I think investing in video is great, but I think again that in itself is not enough. You have to take a strategic approach in terms of, okay, like how is this video going to be leveraged? Like, so when consumers watch the video, are we going to give them a call to action? Are we going to try and drive them somewhere else? How are we going to distribute the video? Are we going to send it out through an email newsletter? Are we going to post it through social? And just really thinking through all those aspects. It's really kind of the customer experience, or the buyer's journey, so to speak, versus let's just make a video and hope for the best.
I gotcha. So know what it's leading to, know what the point is, know what you want to get back from that taking that action, so that way you know if it paid off or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are a lot of kind of possibilities out there and things people can do, but is there like a starting point? Like if one of these startups comes to you and you chit chat with them and figure out where they're at, are there like certain things that you're looking for or certain questions that you always ask of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think first and foremost, for marketing to be effective, a startup or a founder or a couple founders, they have to really believe in the value of marketing. And so, I think a lot of people have this misconception of marketing of like, oh, it's a Doritos commercial, or it's a print ad in a magazine, or even like telemarketing. And so the first thing is like that's not really what marketing is all about. Marketing is about really growing your business through telling a compelling story about why your product or service will make your customers' lives better. So I think that's first off. The second thing is, as I said at the top, is I can't emphasize enough the importance of being strategic about marketing. And again, it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it will save you a ton of time, money, and again, make your marketing most effective. And so before a startup does anything else, I would recommend they do a marketing plan. And companies, they might think, oh, like I got to do like a 30 page plan or something like that. No, like you can get all of your entire plan down on 2 pages. And in fact, that's what I do with a lot of startups is we have a service called a 2 page marketing plan. And that's where we get very detailed about everything within your marketing. So what's our objective? Who's our target audience? What's the values we want our marketing to reflect? What are the strategic initiatives that we think are important within our marketing? Once we do all that at a strategy level, then the next page in the 2 page plan is dedicated to tactics. So we'll break things into kind of what I call quarterly sprints. So we'll look at things quarter to quarter and we'll say, what specific tactics do we need to execute, in each month of the quarter. So everything from maybe it's redesigning the website to developing blogs to doing organic and paid social to influencer marketing. And this really kind of becomes our roadmap for how we're going to execute. But then we also, we have goals and associated metrics that we're measuring against to just, ensure that we're doing the right things.
Awesome. So it sounds like these startups that don't have just this simple two-page marketing plan, it makes, I mean, it makes a lot of sense why this is important, because it sounds like if they're missing this, they're kind of like directionless, and without stuff like those quarterly sprints, maybe they kind of let things go off to the wayside, and now that they have goals and metrics and stuff like that, all the goofy, silly stuff that they were maybe looking into, they can either say, well, this isn't worth our time, or when they actually do, run those ads or create that content or do whatever, now they can kind of know if it's aligning with their goals and stuff like that.
You got it. You got it.
Cool. So when startups come to you and they kind of have all this sort of they're like disorganized or things aren't quite working right, and then they figure out their marketing plan. I mean, are there any sort of difficulties that you've come across with people sort of implementing this? Like, is there sort of like any kind of like growing pains or stuff like that? Because I mean, putting stuff on paper is one thing, but then actually like adhering to it is another. So, do
Yeah.
your clients have any sort of difficulty with doing that?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in creating systems. So basically, creating kind of replicable, excuse me, repeatable models that are very kind of automated and in a lot of ways can kind of run on their own. And the reason I'm a big proponent of this is that it builds efficiencies and scalability into your marketing operations. And so that makes your marketing operations a lot more powerful, but also it essentially makes them less dependent on one particular individual or one particular type of strategy or tactic. And so I don't know if you do recommended reading or anything like that, but kind of the inspiration for this was a book called The E-Myth, I
Oh
believe
yeah,
written by Michael
Michael
Gerber.
Gerber. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a big proponent of working on your business, not in it. And so that's the approach I try to take with companies is let's create a marketing operation that is really gonna essentially be a well-oiled marketing machine when it comes to content development, social media marketing, influencer marketing, and even engage in press and media. And certainly you can't kind of automate or not have any sort of manual work, but you can minimize it, and that's kind of the really approach that I try to advocate with companies.
Awesome. Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense that, like you said, there's still manual work, but by having it sort of on paper, you can scale, and then you're also, like you said, not tied to one person. So if one person has to quit or something in the machine isn't working, you just replace them with what you lost. So I mean, great stuff, and I'm already getting excited about this. And so, can you kind of walk us through like a case study or an example of one of these growth partners that came to you and they were in trouble, and you worked your magic and just made their startup really kick some ass?
Yeah, so I think one example I'll use is a company by the name of Kick Further. Kick Further is actually they do a crowdfunding investing platform, and they've actually been recognized as one of the top startups across the country. They were a finalist in Richard Branson's startup challenge. So a very very kind of fast growing, very attractive startup for a lot of reasons. And so basically they came to me from a standpoint of like, what do we do? We're at the time, I think it was three or four founders, and they had a chief marketing officer in place at the time, but he would kind of be very comfortable admitting, he wasn't really a marketing guy. And so he was just like, where do I even begin? What do I do? And so the first thing we did is we sat down and we put together this marketing plan. So it was the 2-page marketing plan that we talked about. And the beauty of the plan is it's not, while it is kind of templated, we customize it for every client so that it kind of best meets the needs of the business. So, we sat down and we put together that plan, and we really kind of mapped out, where where they needed to be focused, both from a strategic and an execution standpoint. Once we did that, we realized, you know what, the messaging, it's not really on point. At least not in terms of like the target audience, as well as, what's going on in the market, competitive landscape. So then we did a positioning and messaging workshop, and we essentially just kind of flushed out their entire messaging, trying to account for, their buyer personas, what was kind of the trends in the market in terms of, what was happening in the crowdfunding space, as well as kind of really trying to highlight the kind of the differentiating points and aspects of the company that really set them apart from their competitors. And then, once we did that, we were kind of at a point like, you know what, we really need to also have a in-depth understanding of the buyer's journey. So what we did is we basically conducted a pretty extensive market research project where I surveyed and interviewed their current user base, and really got a very thorough handle in terms of who their customers were, how they were using the platform, why they were using it, and really what kind of appealed to them about the platform. And from that, we were able to create not only a better defined buyer persona than what we had before, but we were also really able to kind of have a clear picture of the buyer's journey, which, as you know, really informs both what you do from a marketing standpoint, but also from a product development standpoint.
Awesome. I mean, all of that sounds amazing, and you weren't kidding that you guys are growth partners and not just like a consultant that looks and says in 10 minutes, oh, here, do this and this. You actually kind of went in and figured out, those buyers and why they were using it and what they wanted. And so I'm curious, like, how did that sort of work out? Like, was it a matter of like adding like a pop-up to the site, or did you did you like send an email to the whole list of the user base? Like, how did you survey and interview those buyers?
Yeah, well, so I mean, we were at a place where, Kick Further, because the type of company they had a very engaged and, I'll say loyal user base. And so, essentially we reached out to them. I think we incentivized with, I want to say something with like a $25 to $50 Amazon gift card. And, we were able to get, X number of respondents. And then we did like a separate incentive for actually in-person interviews. And so that's kind of a nice segue. And just to another point I always like to make with companies is, if you want to have good data, you have to pay for it. And so I think where a lot of startups kind of make the mistake is they think, they can just kind of go out and, whether it's send out surveys or do interviews, and they're going to be able to get, actionable, insightful data. And, maybe you will every once in a while, but the reality is, if you really want to have data that you can make decisions based on, you need to pay for it, whether that's through incentivizing, respondents, or working with professional marketing company or research firm to help you to really collect that data.
And so, I mean, why is that? And because I imagine that like if it was just a quick thing for a survey, like maybe you'd only capture like the people like really like the huge complainers and then the huge fans of the sites, I imagine. So is like the reason for paying for it is to kind of capture that middle space, or is there another reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of, you want to get a holistic picture of your user base and essentially kind of the views and opinions they have. But I think the other thing is, if you just think about from an engagement standpoint, right? Like, there's so much information out there today, whether it's coming across through email, social media, it's really overwhelming for just kind of the everyday individual. And so, to not only get their attention, but also to get them to engage, you have to provide some sort of incentive. And, certainly there are going to be circumstances and users where they'll be happy to do it for free. But even that has kind of, a margin of diminishing returns. And so that's where, again, this is coming from years and years of doing market research. uh, I'm just a huge proponent of, if you want good data, you got to pay for it.
Awesome. It makes a lot of sense. And so, as you were, this whole thing of like the buyer's journey keeps coming back and sort of, reaching out to like the user base. And is this a big part of what you do? Because just sort of as you explain this, I imagine that a lot of startups, maybe the underlying root cause of why they're going wrong, in addition to like not systematizing and stuff like that, I imagine that maybe they're having difficulties because they're not kind of getting tapped into what those buyers actually want and not getting kind of in the head of those users. So is that sort of on the right track? Is that like just a big like weakness with a lot of startups?
Yeah. So, I would say a lot of what I described there is very strategic in nature, right? So, um, when you work with startups, you can't solely be strategic, because in order for startups to gain traction, to grow, they have to be able to execute. And so, in order for us to effectively help them, we have to not only focus on the strategic side of things, but also on the execution side of things. And so, I would say, if looking at things kind of from a big picture standpoint, we probably fall more on the execution side just because we have to by working with startups. But as I tell any prospective customer, it makes absolutely no sense for us to be exclusively focused on the execution side of things, because the strategic part helps guide us and give us direction in terms of what tactics to execute and how and when. And so that's kind of essentially our I guess our mantra or how we operate. You know, certainly we're gonna put emphasis, I think, on the front end on the strategy side of things, but then primarily there's a lot of focus on execution.
Awesome, and that reminds me of like what's that saying? Like, be stubborn in your goal, but flexible in your methods, or something like that. So it's like
Exactly.
have both sides of that coin, the strategy and the tactics. That way, you're not directionless, but it's also not just like a bunch of stuff in sort of theory land. And so it's all making a lot of sense. As you're explaining all this, and so if someone's listening, like a startup or a founder or someone like that, how do they know if they're a right fit to contact you and partner with you? Like, do they need to be like a certain size or cash flow positive or reach a certain point in their business, or will you take on
Yeah.
anyone?
So I'd say first off, I'm always willing to talk, to any company, and I love just being able to kind of, give, whether it's free advice or kind of free tips. I mean that's just kind of, something I enjoy, is kind of just, giving away as much as I can. But I think, beyond that, what we typically look for is, so one, I think companies that are looking to, to grow, pretty, I'll say pretty kind of aggressively, or pretty proactively. Along with that, we generally, look for companies who are kind of, they're raising their seed funds. And or they're currently being backed by venture capital firms or angel investors, or they're revenue generating and self-sustaining.
Awesome. So in other words, they've got to be serious. They've got to have some sort of skin in the game, whether it's the seed funds or are they generating their own money or they're backed by someone, but they have to be kind of in it for real, right?
Right. Yeah, and we've worked with companies all the way from like pre-concept phase. So we've worked with companies where we'll basically, we'll help them kind of refine their concept and actually translate that into a business plan and business model, all the way to, we're working with companies who are raising, millions of dollars with major venture capital firms. They've got a great model, they've got a fantastic product, but now it's a matter of really kind of ramping things up and growing the business through marketing.
Awesome, cool. So maybe their actions up to a certain point have only gotten them here, and now they need you to kind of get to that next level. Awesome. So if someone is listening to what you had to say today, and they say, I like this guy Chris, I like the Market Compass, where should they go to get in touch with you and kind of move the ball along on this?
Yeah, so a real easy step is they can just go to our website, so www.themarketcompass.com, or they can contact us at info at themarketcompass.com.
Awesome. Makes it super simple. So if you're an email person, info@themarketcompass.com. If you're a website person, then go to themarketcompass.com. So lots of great breakthroughs and takeaways in today's call about if you're a startup, what kind of things you should be avoiding and doing. And then I really liked your thought process, Chris, as far as like how you dig down and figure out what the buyers are going through and having that 2-page business plan and strategy and tactics and all that cool stuff. And so everyone listening should go right now to themarketcompass.com. And if you think that you're a right fit for Chris and what he does and what his team does, all the magic they work, then fill out that form, email him, do whatever you have to do to get in touch with them so that your business can grow and thrive and all that good stuff. So thanks so much, Chris, for stopping by and sharing what you had to share today.
Thanks a lot, Robert.
Thank you. This is Robert Plank. And would you like to be a guest on the program? Do you have an idea for a future episode, or do you just want to tell us how we're doing? Get in touch with us right now at robertplank.com/ask to let us know.